Round 1.
And he's down!
Fight!
Ouch!
KO!
And he's down!
Round 2. Fight!
It's gonna be a battle! It's good!
KO! You win! Round 1.
It's gonna be a battle!
Fight!
Amazing!
KO! Round 2. Fight! KO! You win! Round 1.
Amazing!
Fight!
It's good!
KO! Round 2. Fight!
It's good! And he's down!
KO! You win! Round 1.
Ouch!
Fight!
Ouch! Amazing!
KO! Round 2. Fight!
Nice!
Haha!
He's teaching him the hard way.
KO. Final round. Fight.
He's teaching him the hard way. Amazing!
KO. You win. Round 1.
He's teaching him the hard way. And he's down.
KO.
Nice.
Round 2. Fight.
He's teaching him the hard way. It's gonna be a battle.
KO. You win. Round 1.
Nice.
Fight.
Amazing.
KO. Round 2.
And he's down.
Fight.
Amazing. He's teaching him the hard way.
KO. You win. Round 1.
Ha
Fight.
ha! It's good.
KO. Round 2. Fight.
Amazing!
KO. You win.
Ha ha!
Round 1.
It's good.
Fight. Round 2. Fight.
Ha It's gonna be a battle.
KO. You win. Round 1.
Ouch!
Fight. KO. Round
Ouch!
2. Fight.
It's gonna be a battle. It's gonna be a battle.
KO. You win. Round 1.
Ouch!
Fight.
And he's down. It's gonna be a battle. Haha.
KO. Round 2. Fight.
Haha. Amazing!
KO. Final round. Fight.
Amazing! Nice!
KO. You win. Round 1.
Amazing!
Fight.
And he's down!
KO. Round 2.
Amazing!
Fight.
Haha.
KO. You win.